The car that I'm testing here today is the #1 go-to car for millennials, Gen Z, and first-time buyers. It's not only one of the best-selling vehicles in the United States, it's one of the best-selling vehicles in the world. Oh, and apparently it's the third most Instagram vehicle in the world, if that matters to you. My name is Omar, and today I'm finally test driving the 2022 Honda Civic. Yes, the Civic may be one of the most popular vehicles in the world, but it also continuously faces a lot of competition. You have its arch nemesis, the Toyota Corolla, and then you have the outstanding Mazda 3 and the very hungry Hyundai Elantra, and then someone somewhere decided to buy a Volkswagen Jetta over all of those options. So how is the 2022 Honda Civic? The one I'm testing here is the Civic Touring, which is powered by a 1.5-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine pumping out 180 horsepower. It'll do 0 to 60 in about 7.5 seconds, and that's pretty exciting for a Civic that isn't an SI or a Type R. The only issue that I thought I would have had was the continuously variable transmission, the CVT. Now I know what you're thinking. Car reviewers always hate on CVTs, and the people that are actually buying a Honda Civic probably don't even care what kind of transmission it has. But I mean, come on, does this noise not really bother car shoppers out there? But yeah, I will say the CVT in the new Civic isn't that annoying. Honda has retuned it for the EX and the Touring, so it doesn't feel too CVT-ish. Not to mention the Civic Touring that I'm driving here gets paddle shifters, so you can really go crazy if you want. But if you're somebody that would rather shift through the gears themselves, the upcoming Civic hatchback will offer a 6-speed manual transmission, which the sedan unfortunately doesn't. You do have sport mode, and once you pop it in sport mode, nothing really sporty happens besides the fact that it revs a little bit higher. But this isn't about being sporty, is it? That, of course, will be reserved for the Civic Si and the Civic Type R. This is all about the easiest way to get from point A to point B. And when it comes to that, the new Honda Civic does an outstanding job. Compared to the outgoing Civic, this is way more refined. It's smoother, it's quieter, it's more comfortable, it's easy to drive. It just works. However, like I said earlier, the Civic continues to face some really tough competition. Mazda and Hyundai are becoming masters at their game, and the Mazda 3 and the Hyundai Elantra are some pretty exciting options. So how does the new Civic stack up against its rivals? Let's find out. Let me give you a quick tour, and then I'll give you my opinion on whether or not if you should buy this over the competition. Make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit like. All right, let's do this. As always, before we get into everything else, let's take a look at some of the cool and interesting things that you should know about the 2022 Honda Civic. Now, I know you're probably thinking, what can be so cool about a Honda Civic? Well, the Civic usually has an Easter egg hidden in the center armrest. Pop it open, pull out the coin tray, and flip it over, and you'll see a papercraft graphic of the first generation Civic with the words, "The Civic history goes on." That's really cool. And come on, you know I had to make this, and here it is. First generation Civic, meet the 11th generation Civic, now go and be friends. Next up, since everyone is doing digital gauge cluster displays, the new Civic has to as well to keep up, and it's actually pretty nice. You've got a 10.2-inch display, and overall it's pretty clean and pretty informative. You've got 2 viewing modes, including round and bar. I personally don't like bar. I like to keep it in round. It looks much better. And it'll do some minimal color changes when you switch through the drive modes, so that's kind of cool. But by far the coolest thing is this tiny little Civic graphic in the gauge cluster. This tiny Civic here will actually imitate your rear lights. Indicate right and the graphic will show your right indicator, indicate left and it'll show your left indicator. Turn on your hazards and you'll see that right there as well. Hit the brakes and your brake lights will light up. That is really cool. Now keep in mind this digital gauge cluster display is only available in the Honda Civic Touring. Now we'll dive into the interior a little bit later, but I do want to point out this honeycomb trim, which looks really awesome. It makes everything look really crisp and clean since the vents remain hidden, but I'm sure cleaning this will be a bit challenging. But check this out, the vents actually make a cool little click sound when you're adjusting them. And so do the climate knobs. That is very, very satisfying. I like this a lot. So how much does the new Civic cost? The base Civic LX starts at $21,700, and then you have the Civic Touring, which I'm driving here. This is the top of the line model. This starts at $28,300. Nonetheless, the base Civic will give you a bunch of standard options, including a 7-inch touchscreen display with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And then you get a bunch of standard driver assist tech as a part of Honda Sensing, including adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, which is awesome within itself. You also have traffic sign recognition, collision mitigation braking, road departure mitigation, and of course a rear view camera. But if you want the Civic totally equipped to the max, you'll have to go for the Touring trim, and that will give you these very, very comfortable leather trim seats. These are actually really nice. You also get heated front seats as standard, which you also get on the Civic EX. By the way, the Civic Touring is the only one that will give you power seats both for the driver and the passenger. The EX and the Touring will also give you a power moonroof. If you want the 12-speaker Bose sound system, you can only get it on the Touring model, and it actually sounds pretty nice. Now, tech-wise is where the Civic Touring really shines. You get the 10.2-inch digital gauge cluster display that we saw earlier, and then the Civic Touring is the only one that gets the 9-inch touchscreen display with standard navigation, standard wireless Apple CarPlay, and standard wireless Android Auto. And then the Civic Touring is the only one that gets a wireless charger for your smartphone. All right, let's talk horsepower and torque. The Civic EX and the Civic Touring are powered by a 1.5-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine with 180 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque, and it's mated to a CVT transmission. The LX and the Sport get a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine pumping out 158 horsepower. Now, if you want a manual transmission, you can't get it on the Civic Sedan. You'll have to hold out for the Civic hatchback for that. And I can't wait to test this 180 horsepower engine with the manual transmission. That should be really fun. Now, when it comes to 0 to 60, it's not that great, but it's not terrible either. I clocked it in at 7.6 seconds, and you have a top speed of 126 miles an hour. As for the drive mode, you're working with Sport, Normal, and Econ, and check out when you can't go down any further. Check out the sound that it makes. Fuel economy wise, the 180 horsepower Civic with the CVT transmission is rated at 31 city and 38 highway. You have a 12.4 gallon tank capacity. I'm averaging, after a couple days of driving and a few idling sessions, a total of 31.8 miles a gallon, so that's not that bad. Now, from the outside, the new Civic isn't a bad looking car at all. It just looks very, very similar to the Accord. And honestly, the reason I think Honda doesn't go totally over the edge with the design of the Civic is because they want it to remain timeless. Well, unless you're going for the Civic Type R, then they totally go over the top. Speaking of which, I cannot wait to see the new Civic Type R, which of course will be based on the Civic hatchback, and Honda just released pictures of the Civic hatchback, and to me, it looks a little bit less hatchbacky and more of a 4-door coupe style thing going on. But yeah, overall the Civic Sedan has definitely grown up in terms of looks, and it looks a bit classier, a bit sharper, and a bit more refined. The compact sedan segment is filled with some exciting and edgy designs. I'll say that the Toyota Corolla and the Hyundai Elantra seem to be more on the edgier side, while the Honda Civic and the Mazda 3 are a bit more on the tamer side. Cargo capacity wise, you're working with 14.8 cubic feet, which I think is less than last generation's model. But yeah, it's a compact trunk for compact sedan living. Now, once you get inside, you'll definitely notice that the Civic has grown up quite a bit. There's a real good use of high quality materials throughout this cabin. Everything just feels way more mature. There's not much plastic in here at all, besides maybe this area right here, but everything feels really solid. Now, when I got inside, the first thing I noticed was how everything is just simple and easy to learn. There is no learning curve here at all, which will help the Civic continue to appeal to first-time buyers. There is a button or knob for everything in here, which I love seeing. There's no need to dig through the infotainment system and teach yourself on how to turn your AC on or off, or sync the temperature. Everything has manual controls, and that's how it should be. But yeah, overall this interior is a nice and simple place to be, and that will help the Civic maintain its loyal buyers. Oh, I do want to point out that there's not much polished black here besides this trim right under the honeycomb pattern. Honda says, and I quote, "Materials were chosen with an eye towards practicality, such as the premium center console trim specifically designed to hide fingerprints and smudges to help maintain a high-end appearance." Thank God, Honda. Everybody should take a note that polished black isn't that exciting. And when it comes to the legroom in the back, you have 37.4 inches. I'm about 6 foot tall. That is my seating position. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. If you're taller or heavier, you might have some trouble back here, but it's totally not that bad. I've seen other people say that it's terrible. That's my seating position. I'm about 6 foot tall. I still have a bit of legroom back here. Now, I've already gone through and shown you the cool gauge cluster, but this is where I would dive deeper into the infotainment system, but it's pretty straightforward. It's quick, it's simple. I have had no issues with it hanging up or slowing down. And again, the Touring will give you wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, along with navigation. But a cool thing that I want to point out here is that this tiny place right here where you can rest your fingers to make it easier when you're touching the screen. Now, specifically, Honda says that this area measures 0.8 inches to rest your finger, making it easier to use the touchscreen by providing a stable surface to rest your hand. I'm glad they thought of that. Now, before I give you my opinion on how it is to drive the new Civic, let me point out a few random things that I love to show all of you. You have 4 cup holders, 2 in the front, and then you have 2 in the back for the rear passengers right there. Here are what the keys look like to the new Civic. They're a bit rounder, and you have remote start. Let's start it up. There you go. Door open and close sound from the outside and from the inside. That's a nice little welcome sound too. Solid, pretty solid, not bad at all. Charging game-wise, you have two USB-A ports, one for your Apple CarPlay and Android Auto projection, one just for charging, and then the Civic Touring is the only one that has a wireless charger. Rear passengers are not left out with two USB-A ports of their own. And of course, we must do an indicator and horn sound test here with the 2022 Honda Civic. Indicator first. Pretty Honda indicator. Now for the horn sound, just let me lower my window, and here we go. And I'm not expecting much at all because this is a Civic. And I was right. Absolutely right. Wow. Come on, can't we get beefier horns on Civics and compact sedans in general? And now that I've given you a tour of the new Civic, let me give you my opinion on how this stacks up against the competition. All right, let's get to it. The hell is that? The car looks so weird. Oh, it's a Kia K900. Nice. Now let's get the Toyota Corolla out of the way. The new Civic is hands down much better than the current Corolla. I'm waiting for Toyota to do a drastic and exciting update to the Corolla, and until that happens, it's off my list. But what about the Mazda 3 and the Hyundai Elantra? The Mazda 3 being one of my personal favorite options in this segment. That thing is extremely fun to drive. I think it's a little bit more fun to drive than the Civic, but that can scare some first-time buyers that just want a car that's easy to drive. The Hyundai Elantra is another exciting option in this segment, and Hyundai is becoming one of my personal favorite brands. The Elantra's got value, it's got some really cool tech and a crazy exterior design hoping to grab your attention, but I doubt that it'll grab your attention over the Honda Civic. That said, as it stands right now, when it comes to being the best compact sedan, the Honda Civic is back on top. Honda has carefully updated one of the most important cars in the world with a classier exterior design, even though it may look a little too Accordish, a better interior, a better ride, and modern technology that won't scare you away. For me personally, when it comes to compact sedans, the battle will always be between the Honda Civic and the Mazda 3, but can we please get a Mazda Speed 3? The Mazda 3 Turbo is nice, but I need a Speed 3 to go head-to-head with the Civic Type R because I cannot wait to see what Honda does with the next generation Civic Si and the Civic Type R. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit like, make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. My handle is @OmarDrives. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Peace. Put it in sport mode. Paddle shifting in a Honda Civic with a CVT. Somebody stop me. I'm going crazy. This is not allowed.